But now, in the rehearsal, see, this is the important thing. If the basic elements of music, and that applies for a very good orchestra and for a not so good orchestra, will always be the same, and some sort of pattern of 12 words, too long, too short, too high, too low, and will basically make the whole difference in the form of the music. It had always been said that a melody is to be aptly and artistically interpreted is not so much the notes, but the intervals between one note and another one, which make a legato or a staccato, everything. Those things are so important to learn that in my conducting class, I hardly ever show them how to conduct by means of a so-called technique of which I don't think very much. It has been written too much, it has been said too much, of a thing which very few people really understand. And sometimes you could come to believe that it is the accompanying movement of sort which is
that is the essential.
Basically established between the. I might give you an example which has nothing to do with music. If you play tennis, somebody will tell you when you hit a ball, take him up over the net. Of course, it's nonsense because the moment you even could think of taking him out, the ball is very far away. What it makes the difference is the attitude. Your attitude is such that you will have the racket on an angle where ball will jump over the net instead of into the net. The attitude is
the most important.
The most important thing in everything. It reflects the mood in which you want to hear music. Established is the thing between yourself and the orchestra in long rehearsals where you explain only the detail. You see, I don't think it's very wise to give poetic examples.
No, one has to be very specific.
Exactly.
Very specific. But behind it, there must be a poetic imagination. Do you know the saying of Lao Tse, which refers exactly to this fact that it is the intangible which creates the essence of a thing and not the tangible? He says it's not the spokes of a wheel that make the nature of a wheel, it's the space between them. It's not the walls of a house that make a house, it's the space within the walls. And that is very much the same thing. The technique are the walls and the spokes. It's essential too, but the attitude behind the technique, the vision which you have of the music, is what has to be transmitted.
And it's exactly what Woody said, from the intervals between, it's the space between the notes which makes the music in this. But speaking from rehearsing, if you rehearse with your chamber orchestra, do you play for them?
Sometimes I illustrate.
Yes.
And I always find it's a great satisfaction to be able to do that. It creates, because with this little chamber orchestra, there is hardly the feeling that I am a conductor. I'm really more or less one of them.
Yes.
And that is the strength of the group. And when I can play with them or for them or illustrate, it enhances that feeling. Whereas with a big orchestra, it's entirely different.
I'm not so sure. You see, of course, there's a moment where the
but then you sing, don't you?
Well, you see, I've not a voice of Chaliapin.
But it's not necessary.
Sometimes they don't even understand me. Sometimes I speak so fast that they are asked, do you understand everything what Mr. von Karajan says? They say no, but what we don't understand, we guess. And as the guesswork goes on since 10 years, so
the guess is pretty accurate.
It's pretty accurate. But I want to say this also is big family. Sometimes really we discuss things between ourselves, and you wouldn't have the feeling that there's a boss with a whip.
No, of course not.
And,
no.
I think this
well,
is
that's the way you
most
succeed in getting what you do out of them. You draw it out like a conjurer, like
Yes,
a magician.
I wouldn't say that really it is, because maybe I can explain in terms of the utmost simplicity, with very few words, not what I want, but what is essential to get the meaning of the musical phrase. The moment this is established and the sort of inertia is superated.
I find your similes very apt, very expressive and dramatic. It's very useful to be able to give similes.
Yes, this is, especially with an orchestra with this enormous sense of humor.
Yes.
Sometimes we make jokes, and with a joke, you can, first of all, you relax people. With a joke. And they will get the spirit of things with maybe one word, much better than if you say... I have been told in the pictures of an exhibition, a certain conductor has brought into the rehearsal room a big icon and said, play it as that. Nobody knew what it was about. If he had said, play it shorter or longer, then
it would be much quicker. Much more
and you see, one thing we haven't talked about is, before an orchestra, if the orchestra feels that you want something which you cannot express, you will never get a result.
No.
You might be able to get away with everything, but not with the uncertainty that you don't know what you want and how the sound should be.
Yes. But on the other hand, tell me, with someone of your experience who can imagine most orchestral sounds and the most beautiful ones, do you ever find that the orchestra gives even more or slightly differently than what you expect, and that is in itself an inspiration?
Oh, yes, and this is maybe the biggest inspiration. Everything is, let's say, established.
Of course.
It's like we would, technically speaking, put ourselves on the same frequency. That means that we feel in terms of pitch, anything, we feel on the same way. But now comes the impulse. And I know it, and this is why I admire my own orchestra so much, because on everything which might be fixed and established, the moment you start to make music in the concert, something unexpected will come out. In the means of no bow player, whom you know how he should play his phrase, but he will do it in a different way.
Well, that is the joy of making music.
And this is the joy, and this is only the moment where 100 men become one body. It's like a thing which I always are fascinated in watching flight of birds, a big one, who move in one direction and in the other without, of course, anybody leading them. It's a sort of mass feeling which does instinctively the thing with the utmost precision and with the utmost beauty and grace. And this is exactly what happens to an orchestra. It becomes an own body. And there I have to return to the first phrase when I say, is it an orchestra for you? Do you feel it as a sort of an alien body? It becomes one, but comparable to a person which you live in big harmony. And of course, she will have her own thoughts in a way which makes the harmony between her and you, but it will be a very personal thought, and you will accept it because you have respect and you love her. And if you love an orchestra, it will only go on, and it has gone on for us 10 years, if they give to you something which is above the imagination you have in the orchestra. Otherwise, they would be slaves. And we don't want slaves.
And you would not have the same satisfaction.
Exactly.
I think to be accepted by an orchestra with an infallible instinct is a very great satisfaction.
Certainly it is. Now, because we have talked, now we will have our rehearsal.
We will put our words into practice.
And we'll put our words into practice. Let's go to
I'm looking forward to it.